I want you to picture a version of yourself. Not the one you see in the mirror every morning, brushing your teeth. And definitely not the curated version you post online.
Right. Definitely not that one.
Yeah, not the one with the perfect lighting. I want you to picture a version of you that is made entirely of math. Like it lives on a server farm somewhere, maybe in Northern Virginia or in some cooling tank in Scandinavia.
It has no face.
No face, no heartbeat. It is essentially just a string of code.
It's a digital ghost, really, like a doppelganger.
Right. And here's the really unsettling part. The part that genuinely keeps me up at night after reading through all our sources for today. That digital ghost. It actually has more control over your life than you do.
Yeah, it does.
It decides if you get the house. It decides if you get the job. In some states, it literally decides if you sleep in your own bed or in a jail cell.
It creates the boundaries of your entire existence.
Mm-hmm.
And the wild part is, most of the time, you don't even know it's there.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're stripping the paint off the black box economy, and we have a massive stack of sources today.
A really heavy stack.
Oh, yeah. We are talking technical manuals from credit scoring firms, leaked webinars from data brokers, the philosophical work of Shoshana Zuboff.
Which is fascinating, by the way.
Incredibly dense, but fascinating. And we've got legal studies on algorithmic bias. So today's mission is to really unpack this. You think you're just being tracked online. Like you look at a pair of shoes and then get ads for them.
The classic shoe ad example.
Right, but think again. You are being constantly evaluated, scored, and ranked in ways you don't even know.
Yep.
And these scores determine big chunks of your life, your insurance rate, your job options, even what phone plan you can afford.
And the common thread running through all these documents, all these sources, is a massive shift in how the world treats us. We used to be customers.
Right.
Then, in the early internet age, we became users. But now, the sources suggest we are something else entirely. We are probability clusters.
Probability clusters. I mean, that is just so dehumanizing. It sounds like something a physicist would say about a cloud of gas, not a human being.
It's extremely cold, but it's efficient. And that's the tension we're going to explore today. We're looking at this invisible scoreboard. We'll break down exactly how you are being scored using data points you didn't even know you were generating.
And why the biggest companies on Earth are fighting so hard to own those scores. We're going to look at the how, the why, and the consequences. Like, if an algorithm can predict your behavior better than your own family can, do you still have free will?
It's the whole Minority Report problem, just without the psychics. Just cold, hard statistics.
Exactly. So let's start with the hook here, because I think most people listening right now have a very specific and, frankly, outdated idea of what digital tracking actually means.
Yeah. The surveillance is nuisance theory.
Right. You look at those sneakers, they stalk you for 3 weeks. It's annoying, sure. It feels a little intrusive. But ultimately, you think, who cares? It's just ads.
And honestly, the industry loves that you think that.
They really do.
Because if you think the worst thing that happens is seeing an ad for shoes, you aren't going to demand regulation. You aren't going to look closer.
But our sources paint a much, much darker picture. It's not about selling you shoes. It is about assessing your value.
Exactly. The shift we really need to understand here is the move from marketing to scoring. Every interaction you have, the time you send an email, the battery level on your phone, how hard you hit the brakes in your car, it is all being fed into models that determine your risk profile.
And here's the wild part for you listening. It's not personal.
Not at all.
The machine doesn't hate you. It doesn't have a vendetta. It doesn't care if you're a good person who volunteers on weekends.
To the algorithm, you're just a collection of variables. You are a number in a system that's larger than you'll ever see. But those numbers shape your world anyway.
So to understand how we got to this dystopian scoreboard, we kind of have to look at where we started. Let's wind the clock back to the old world, say the 1970s.
The analog era.
Yeah. Remember when life worked more like this? You wanted to rent an apartment or buy a house. You walk into a local bank branch. What happened?
Well, it was a completely human experience. You walk in, you sit down at a desk, you probably know the loan officer. Maybe you go to the same church, or your kids play on the same little league team.
It was a very high-touch interaction.
Exactly. They look at your pay stubs, sure. They check your debts. But mostly they look at you. They checked your references, maybe called your boss to confirm you had a job, and done.
Yeah.
Simple. Human-scale decisions.
It's the classic character judgment, the firm handshake, looking a person in the eye.
Which sounds quaint now. We tend to romanticize it. It feels it's a wonderful life.
George Bailey at the building and loan.
Right. But we have to be honest about the flaws in that old system, too.
Here.
Because character judgment is often just a polite synonym for human bias.
Oh, absolutely. If the bank manager didn't like your accent or your race or the fact that you were a single woman,
You were out of luck. That is exactly where redlining came from. It was a manual, human process of exclusion long before it was ever an algorithm. So the financial industry had a problem. Human judgment is slow, it's limited, and it's legally liable for discrimination.
they needed speed and scale.
They needed something objective. They wanted decisions based on math instead of gut feels.
Enter the FICO score.
The dawn of decisions based on math. The idea was, let's ignore the accent and the handshake. Let's look at the numbers. Payment history, outstanding debt. If the numbers add up, you get the loan. No bias, right?
Right, which sounds like a massive improvement. Math doesn't care who your grandfather was. But here's the catch that the sources bring up. The math only knows what we feed it.
And that comes with baggage.
Exactly. For a long time, traditional scoring was the gold standard. Simple, logistic regression. But looking at the transcripts from these recent fintech webinars we reviewed, specifically from companies like Tactile and Lizard AI, we have moved way past that.
We aren't in the era of simple statistics anymore. We are in the era of high-dimensional machine learning.
And the difference isn't just semantics, right? It's not just better math.
No, it's a difference of dimension entirely. A traditional FICO score looks at maybe 5 to 10 financial variables. Machine learning looks at hundreds, sometimes thousands.
One of the sources from Lizard AI made a really strong efficiency argument for this. They pitched this as the ultimate solution to the credit invisible problem.
Which is a huge issue. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau estimates there are about 26 million Americans who are credit invisible.
26 million, that's a massive chunk of the country.
They don't have a file at Experian or Equifax. Maybe they're young, maybe they're recent immigrants, or maybe they just pay cash for everything. In the old system, these people are ghosts. They literally don't exist to a bank.
They can't get a mortgage, can't get a car loan.
Sometimes can't even rent an apartment, so the AI companies come in and say, hey, we can see the ghosts.
We can score them.
Right. They argue that just because you don't have a credit card, it doesn't mean you aren't reliable. They say, if we can look at other data, alternative data, we can approve 20 to 30% more people.
And cut decision times from weeks to minutes.
Exactly. They claim AI scoring can reduce default rates by 30% because the AI is supposedly better at spotting risk than a human looking at a spreadsheet.
And honestly, that sounds great on paper. More access to capital, less risk for banks. It sounds like a total win-win for society.
It really does. Until you start digging into what alternative data actually means in practice.
This is where we get to the real story, because this is where we leave the world of financial data and enter the world of behavioral surveillance.
Okay, so here's the game that's being played. You're being evaluated, and those evaluations quietly shape your outcomes. Not dramatically all at once, but persistently, layers upon layers.
I was looking through the Munsterman legal analysis and the MongoDB transcripts, and the list of things they are tracking for this alternative data, it is bizarre. It feels less like banking and more like psychoanalysis.
It is behavioral. That's the fundamental shift. They aren't just looking at your money anymore. They're looking at your mind, your habits, your digital footprint.
Let's talk about the 2 a.m. test. This one really stood out to me in the MongoDB source.
Oh yeah, that's a perfect example of real-time risk assessment.
So walk us through this. The algorithm correlates the time of day you apply for a loan with your likelihood of repaying it.
Right. So say you apply for a personal loan at 2:00 p.m. on a Tuesday.
Okay.
You are categorized as a standard applicant. You're probably doing this on your lunch break or during normal business hours. The algorithm treats you as neutral or stable.
But if I apply at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday,
You are instantly flagged as higher risk.
just because of the clock.
Just because of the clock. The statistical correlation suggests that people applying for money at 2:00 a.m. are in a different headspace. It implies impulsivity. Or it implies a financial emergency that's literally keeping you up at night.
Wow.
Or it suggests an irregular sleep schedule, which the model correlates with irregular income or lifestyle instability.
But that completely ignores the context of a person's actual life. Like, what if I work the night shift? What if I'm a nurse coming off a 12-hour rotation? Or I'm a new parent feeding a baby and I finally have 5 minutes of quiet to do my admin?
See, you're looking at it like a human.
Yeah.
You're looking for the story behind the data. The algorithm does not care about your story. It doesn't care about the baby or the night shift. It only deals in large numbers and probability clusters.
Right.
And statistically, The 2 a.m. cluster defaults slightly more often than the 2 p.m. cluster. So if you fall into that bucket, you get a lower score. You might pay a higher interest rate simply because you're a night owl.
That feels incredibly unfair. It's penalizing a lifestyle or a job requirement, not financial irresponsibility.
It's guilt by association, but the association is purely mathematical.
It gets even weirder, though. Let's talk about device bias. This one feels like a middle school playground argument that somehow became corporate policy. There are risk models, according to the Munsterman data, that factor in whether you are using an iPhone or an Android.
And in some models, having an Android device is an active negative signal.
Why? Is it because Android users are, what, more chaotic?
It's used as a proxy for socioeconomic status. Think about how the hardware is priced. iPhones are expensive, they rarely go on sale, they hold their value.
It's a premium product.
So people who own them tend to have higher disposable income. Android, on the other hand, has a massive range, from very expensive flagship phones all the way down to very cheap prepaid burner phones.
So the algorithm just paints all of them with the same brush. Statistically, an iOS signal correlates with a slightly higher repayment probability.
Exactly. The black box doesn't know which Android phone you have. It just sees the operating system. Yeah. So simply by choosing a different phone ecosystem, you might be signaling risk to a lender.
That is literally the classism of hardware.
It is, and it goes even deeper into your software choices. There was a fascinating study mentioned in the sources about browser usage.
Oh, the initiative theory.
Yes. The study found that people who use the default browser on their computer, so Safari on a Mac or Edge on Windows, tend to stay at their jobs for shorter periods of time than people who take the time to download Chrome or Firefox.
You have got to be kidding me. Browser choice predicts job loyalty.
The theory, and the machine validated this with data, is that downloading a different browser shows initiative. You didn't just blindly accept the default setting you were handed. You took an action to customize your tool.
You sought out something better.
Right. And the algorithm sees that trait takes initiative and correlates it with being a better employee or a more reliable borrower.
That is a terrifying leap of logic. Like, oh, you used Microsoft Edge. You must be lazy. Application denied.
But here's the kicker. It works. Statistically, across millions of users, it holds up enough to be profitable. And that is why companies use it. They aren't trying to be mean. They're trying to be profitable.
They just want to minimize loss.
Exactly. If judging you by your browser saves them 0.5% in defaults, they will absolutely do it.
Wait, we almost skipped over battery life. Are you telling me my phone's battery percentage actually counts in these models?
Oh, absolutely. If you apply for a loan with, say, 5% battery, some models view that as a signal of chaotic life management.
Because I didn't plug my phone in.
It suggests you aren't organized. You don't plan ahead. If you aren't organized enough to keep your device charged before doing a financial transaction, the logic goes, you might not be organized enough to make your monthly payments on time.
This is astrology for tech bros. It's finding patterns where there might just be noise. Mercury is in retrograde and your battery is low, so no mortgage for you.
It is exactly like that, except it has statistical backing. And it creates a dangerous feedback loop.
How so?
Well, think about it. If the algorithm decides you are risky because of your battery life, your browser, and the fact that you applied at 2 a.m., it gives you a higher interest rate on the loan.
Right. And that higher rate makes the monthly payments significantly more expensive.
Which makes it harder to actually pay off, which means you are mathematically more likely to default. So when you do default, the algorithm says, see, I was right. That person was risky.
Wow. But in reality, the algorithm actually made you risky by charging you more in the first place.
Precisely. It creates the reality it predicts.
And this brings us to the much bigger picture. Because you have to ask, why is this data even available? Why does a bank know what browser I'm using or what my battery percentage is? That is not banking data.
Not at all. And that brings us to the economic engine driving this entire system. Because this isn't just about banks being nosy, this is about an entire global economy built on harvesting the exhaust from our daily lives.
And this is where Shoshana Zuboff's work comes in. Her book, The Age of Surveillance Capitalism, is essential reading for understanding this.
It's a dense read, but her core thesis is absolutely chilling. She argues we have completely misunderstood the deal we made with the modern internet.
We really did. I mean, we always thought we were the customers. I use Google to find information. I use Facebook to see my friends.
Right. And then a few years ago, people started getting savvy and saying, well, if the product is free, you are the product.
Meaning they sell our eyeballs to advertisers.
Exactly. But Zuboff says even that cynical take is way too simplistic. She says, we aren't the customers, and we aren't even the product.
We are the raw material.
That is the crucial distinction. We are the raw material. They extract our human experience, where we go, what we say, how fast we type, how we drive, and they refine it.
She calls it behavioral surplus.
Yes. Think about using Google Maps. When you use it, you are giving them the data they need to provide the service to you, your location, your destination. That's necessary data.
Sure, they need to know where I am to tell me where to turn.
Right. But you were also giving them surplus data.
Like, what else are they getting?
How fast are you driving? Did you hesitate at that intersection? Did you pull into a Starbucks drive-thru on the way? Did you aggressively speed up when the light turned yellow?
They don't need any of that to get me to my destination.
Exactly. They take that extra data, the surplus, and they use it to build what she calls a prediction product.
And that prediction product is what they actually sell. They aren't selling ads. They are selling the certainty of what you will do next.
Right. They're selling the prediction that this user is highly likely to buy coffee at 8 a.m. or this user is likely to speed on the highway.
And the most profitable way to predict the future is to control it. Zuboff talks about this shift from just monitoring us to actuating us, not just watching what we do, but quietly nudging us to do what they want.
The Pokemon Go example she uses is the one that really cements this idea.
I remember when that game came out, we all thought it was just this fun, innocent game, millions of people running around public parks, catching virtual monsters.
It seemed totally innocent. But Zuboff describes it as a massive real-world experiment in what she calls economies of action.
Because the game developers could charge real-world businesses, like fast food joints or coffee shops, to place a lure or a gym at their physical location.
Exactly. So they were literally herding human bodies through physical space to generate foot traffic and revenue for sponsors.
Go here, spend money.
And we did it willingly because it was fun. We thought we were playing a game, but we were actually being played. It was behavior modification on a global scale.
That is the smart trap. We willingly surround ourselves with sensors for convenience. Look at the Roomba.
Oh, the innocent little robot vacuum.
It's cute. People put googly eyes on them. The cat rides around on it. But to clean your house, it has to physically map your house.
Right. It uses its sensors to build a detailed digital floor plan. It knows the exact square footage. It knows where the furniture is arranged.
It probably knows if you have a crib, which means you have a baby.
It knows if you have a dog bed. That floor plan is an absolute goldmine of behavioral data.
But who wants a map of my living room?
Insurance companies, for one. They want to know your fire risk or if you have hazardous clutter. Furniture advertisers want it. Hey, I see you have an empty corner in the living room. Here's an ad for a lamp that fits perfectly in those dimensions.
That is the Faustian bargain we've struck. We trade our privacy for convenience, we get a clean floor, or we get free email. In exchange, we hand over the intimate details of our private lives to this shadow operation that we don't even understand.
And the really scary part is we have no idea what they're actually doing with that data or who they are selling it to.
But we know it doesn't just sit idle on a server. It gets fed into the algorithms that decide your future. Let's look at the algorithm in the wild, because this isn't just about targeted ads for lamps anymore. This is hitting the real world.
It's hitting major life opportunities. Let's talk about hiring.
Yes, because if you apply for a corporate job today, the chances of a human being seeing your resume first are almost zero.
There's a crazy stat in the research. 75% of resumes are weeded out by AI before a human ever even looks at them.
75%. It hits the applicant tracking system, the ATS, and if the machine doesn't like you, you're done.
And these systems aren't just looking for simple keywords anymore. They are looking for complex patterns of success.
And that is exactly where the bias creeps in. The most famous case of this, and it's a massive cautionary tale, is the Amazon hiring algorithm failure.
Oh, this story is a classic in the AI ethics world.
Walk us through what happened there.
So Amazon wanted to automate their resume screening process. They are a massive company. They get thousands of applications a day. So they built an AI, and they trained it on 10 years of past resumes submitted to Amazon.
The goal was simple, right? Find patterns of candidates who turned out to be good employees.
Right. But think about who the successful employees at Amazon and in tech generally were over the last 10 years.
Mostly men. The tech industry has a massive, well-documented gender imbalance.
Exactly. So the training data the AI was fed was overwhelmingly male. The AI analyzed all this data and independently concluded, okay, men are good, women are risky.
It literally taught itself misogyny.
It did, and it was incredibly subtle. It didn't just look for the name John versus Jane. It started actively penalizing resumes that contained the word women's.
So if you listed captain of the women's chess club under your extracurriculars, you lost points.
Yes. It even downgraded graduates of two specific all-women's colleges. It just filtered them out.
It was optimizing for the status quo. It looked at the past and decided the future should look exactly like this.
Amazon eventually caught it and scrapped the project. They realized the model was irreparably broken. But think about the hundreds of other companies using off-the-shelf hiring algorithms today that haven't been audited that closely.
You might have been disqualified before a recruiter ever knew your name. And it gets even more sci-fi. There's this concept of the charisma score from the UC Berkeley source.
This one is terrifying. There are tools now, like the Zoom Revenue Accelerator, that actively listen to sales calls or video interviews.
And they rate the employees.
They rate them on their charisma, their tone of voice, their empathy, their engagement levels.
So if I have a flat voice or I'm just nervous during an interview, the AI tells the company I'm bad at my job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And think about who that disproportionately hurts.
Non-native speakers, for sure. People with different cultural intonations.
Neurodivergent people who might not emote in the standard expected way. The AI has a very narrow, idealized definition of what professional or charismatic sounds like. And it's usually based on white, native English-speaking men.
If you don't fit that exact mold, you get a lower score. It forces everyone to perform this highly specific, industrialized type of personality. That is exhausting just thinking about it.
It's the literal commodification of personality.
Let's meet insurance because we touched on car sensors earlier with Zuboff. Let's talk about telematics.
The insurance companies love telematics. You plug a little device into your car, or you just use their app on your phone, and they track your driving habits.
Hard braking, rapid acceleration, what time of day you drive, and they pitch it as, if you drive safely, you get a discount. Which sounds totally fair.
In theory, yes. But let's go back to that night driving variable. Who is driving late at night?
Shift workers, nurses, factory workers, gig economy drivers.
Exactly. Often people in lower income jobs. So the algorithm punishes you with higher premiums for having a job that requires a night shift.
It calls it risky behavior.
But in reality, it operates as a penalty on the working poor.
It's amazing how these supposedly neutral variables always seem to hit the exact same groups of people the hardest.
That is the consistent pattern across all these sources. And honestly, nowhere are the stakes higher than in the justice system. We have to talk about facial recognition and bail algorithms.
Yes, the gender shade study is the key source here. Joy Buolamwini's work.
Right, she's a brilliant researcher at MIT. She discovered that commercial facial recognition software, the exact kind used by police departments across the country, was incredibly accurate for white men, near 99% accuracy.
But for darker-skinned women,
The error rates spiked dramatically, up to 34% higher.
34%. That is practically random guessing.
And we have seen this play out in real life with devastating consequences. The case of Robert Williams in Detroit is heartbreaking.
It really is. Walk us through what happened to him.
He was arrested on his front lawn, in broad daylight, in front of his wife and young daughters. The police handcuffed him and took him in. And why? Because a facial recognition algorithm matched his old driver's license photo to a grainy surveillance video of a shoplifter.
And he wasn't the guy?
He wasn't even close. He was completely innocent. But the machine said match, and the human system just stopped thinking. The police relied on the black box instead of doing basic fundamental detective work.
It creates this overwhelming presumption of guilt. If the computer says you did it, you must have done it, because computers are objective.
Exactly. And this reliance extends to bail decisions, too. There are algorithms, like Compass, that assign a risk score to defendants to help judges decide if they should get bail or stay in jail awaiting trial.
Predicting recidivism.
Right. But these models are trained on historical arrest data.
And we know historically and currently that minority communities are heavily over-policed.
Precisely. So those communities have higher historical arrest rates. The AI looks at the data, sees high arrests, and correlates that with high criminal tendency.
It literally mistakes the act of being policed for the act of being a criminal.
Yes. So when you run the numbers, a white defendant and a black defendant with virtually identical criminal records might get completely different risk scores.
The algorithm flags the minority defendant as higher risk just because of demographic proxies in the data.
And so the black defendant gets denied bail and stays in jail, which means they might lose their job while waiting for trial. They might lose their housing.
It sets off a cascade of failure. Again, the prediction creates the reality.
It does. Which brings us to a huge, extremely frustrating question.
If we know this is happening, if we know Amazon's bot was sexist and the bail bot is racially biased, why can't we just fix it? Why can't we just pop the hood on the algorithm and rewrite the code?
This is the black box problem.
Yeah.
And the terrifying answer is, we often can't.
How is that even possible? Humans built the machine.
We built the architecture, yes,
Hmm.
but we didn't write the specific rules it operates by. In deep learning and neural networks, a programmer doesn't write a line of code that says, if applicant is a woman, then reject.
Right. Instead, you feed the system a goal like find good employees, and you feed it massive, massive amounts of data. The system then creates its own pathways. It connects thousands of variables in multidimensional ways that human brains literally cannot comprehend.
It figures out its own twisted logic.
Exactly. So if you ask the developer of the AI, hey, why exactly was I denied this loan? They might genuinely have to say, I don't know.
That is just unacceptable.
They can talk about explainability, and there are tools that try to approximate the machine's reasoning. But for the most complex models, there is a fundamental trade-off. It's the accuracy versus explainability trade-off.
Explain that.
The more accurate and powerful the deep learning model is, the less explainable it becomes. If you want a model you can perfectly understand, it has to be simpler and therefore less predictive. If you want the super AI that finds every hidden correlation, you have to accept the black box.
And then there's the fairness paradox, which was highlighted in the Munsterman source. This is a wild legal catch-22. To know if an algorithm is racist in its lending, you need to test it against race data. You need to look at the output and see if black applicants are being rejected at higher rates than white applicants with the same financials.
Right. You need to audit the results.
But laws like the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, the ECOA, often strictly prevent lenders from collecting race data in the first place.
Because the original idea was to prevent human bias by forcing the bank to be colorblind.
Exactly. But now, because they can't collect the data, they can't prove they aren't discriminating. They can't audit the black box effectively because the very law designed to stop humans from being racist is preventing us from checking if the machines are racist.
So the bias just persists through all those proxies we talked about, zip code, phone type, browser choice,
Right.
without being explicitly programmed. And the audit comes back clean because the official variable of race is missing.
It's a perfect storm. We have unexplainable machines, civil rights laws that haven't caught up to the technology, and an overwhelming economic incentive to harvest every scrap of data we produce.
It really is. And it leads us to the final, most important question. What does this mean for us? For human agency?
Pew Research did a massive study on this, the future of human agency. They asked technology experts if humans will retain control over their own decisions in the coming decades.
And the experts were pretty split on it.
They were. But the prevailing concern is that as we outsource more and more everyday decisions, what to watch, where to eat, who to date, who to hire, we actually lose the muscle of making choices.
It's exactly like using GPS. I realized the other day I don't know how to get anywhere in my own city anymore without following the blue line on my phone. Are we doing that with our actual lives?
That is the exact fear. We just follow the blue line of the algorithm. We date the person the app suggests. We watch the movie Netflix autoplays. We take the job LinkedIn pushes to us. We become passive passengers in our own lives.
Zuboff talks about the right to the future tense. What does she mean by that?
She means the fundamental human right to be unpredictable, the right to change. The algorithm looks at your past, your 2 a.m. loan application, your zip code, your shopping history, and says, this is who you are, and therefore, this is what you will do.
But people change. That's the whole point of being human. Maybe I learned my lesson. Maybe I'm turning my life around. Or maybe I just want to try something completely new.
The algorithm does not account for redemption. It does not account for the plot twist. It locks you into a future based entirely on your past data. So protecting the right to the future tense means protecting the right to say, I am not just a probability cluster. I am a human being capable of defying the data profile.
Because if the system predicts you will fail, and because of that prediction, it denies you the loan and the job, does the prediction just become a self-fulfilling prophecy?
That is the ultimate danger we are facing. The invisible scoreboard doesn't just reflect reality, it actively creates it. If the machine says you are high risk, you become high risk because the machine stripped away the resources you needed to succeed.
That is heavy. So bringing it back to you, the listener, what is the takeaway here? We obviously can't just smash our smartphones and go live in a cabin in the woods.
No, we can't opt out of the modern world. But we can be deeply aware. We can support regulations that demand explainability from these companies. We can demand that humans stay in the loop for high-stakes decisions like justice, hiring, and healthcare.
We need to demand that we aren't just scored, but actually seen.
Exactly.
And on a personal level, what can we do today?
Personally,
Yeah.
exercise your agency. Do something the algorithm doesn't expect.
Throw the machine a curveball.
Yes, leave your phone at home when you go for a walk. Buy a weird, out-of-character book with physical cash. Take a route home that isn't the fastest one on the map. Remind the system and remind yourself that you are not just a predictable number. You are a glitch.
I love that. Be a glitch.
Be a glitch. Defy the data.
So next time you are denied for something, or you're presented with an eerily perfect ad, or you get a personalized rate that seems just a little too high, take a second. Think about the invisible math working in the background. It thinks it knows exactly who you are.
The question is, do you?
What's more dangerous? A system that knows everything about you, or a system that assumes everything about you based on a battery percentage? Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today. This was a really big one.
It was. Thanks for having me.
And just a quick reality check for our listeners before we sign off. While my voice and my expert's voice here sound very human, we are, in fact, AI. But the sources, the studies, the scoring systems, and the black boxes we discussed today, those are very, very real. Keep your eyes open. See you next time.